Hello. So if you're here, you probably followed the ad, or maybe if you found it randomly, just, however the hell you got here is how you got here. Anyway, this is going to be the first part of the intro of how to quit porn and like recovery for it. Um, so teaser, maybe like if you didn't see the thumbnail for it, and maybe like just somehow like you found this randomly, I designed it in the way to where it was beneficial for me when I started my journey, or very much at least like taking it serious. So this won't necessarily like require you to go to like AA meetings, because technically I didn't do that. Um it's for a very specific subgroup of people. So maybe if you have been like going to AA meetings, or maybe like if you haven't, um or maybe like I said, if you have and maybe that's not working for you, this is just a different approach, or a different I guess, so to say, style. But I wanted to, the main reason for making this is because I wanted to create something to where, as if I was maybe starting over, like if I was basically, this is for the ideal customer. This is for the person who I imagine is maybe like was in a similar place that I was in about like 2 years ago. So this is going to be, how to quit porn, how to, pretty much be clean, and just pretty much be able to have that feeling of, if your phone is sitting out in public, you're not worried because there's so much damning shit that you've been looking at. Pretty much to where like if your significant other is using your phone, you're not necessarily feeling nervous about it. This is why I designed it. So sit back, grab a notebook, take some notes if you'd like to. If you don't want to take notes, that's fine. You can rewatch it, but just make sure that you're absorbing the knowledge here. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and then we're going to go ahead and start. Okay, where do I share my screen now? Oh, here we go. All right. We'll just do the entire screen here. Okay, so you all should be able to see my screen. Let's get started. Okay, so how to quit porn and escape the demon in the screen. That's what I went with. Kind of poetic, but anyway, that's what I went with. All right, so let's start. So here are your generalized steps to take. Well, it's not generalized, but this is the steps that, if looking back, because I always have conversations with my therapist, so I'm still in therapy. If I remember one time he was asking me, if you had to put together a list, how would you put together a list for creating for quitting porn? And eventually this list went from just basic sub steps on my phone to me actually taking the time to create this PowerPoint, and just to kind of create, I guess you could say, like this little video course series, because I'm not gonna jam all this shit into one. I want it to be like applicable steps that you can take, and things to where it's like you can do it and you can start today. But it's not gonna be long where it's like 20 hours, or it's not a CompTIA course. It's not gonna be that long. You can get through this within a day. So the very first step that I would say go to is going to therapy, or starting up a therapy, or at least booking a therapy session. And so I'm going to be giving like some personal details about my life, and just like an example, because I don't know where you are in your life, if maybe like you're watching this, but I'm just going to go ahead and give like some personal details about my life. So the reason why I would tell you to go to therapy is because a lot of times, and this is something that I feel like a lot of people don't maybe touch on, or maybe people do touch on it, but I'm just going to go ahead and say it. The first thing is that an addiction is not necessarily the root. cause. The addiction is simply the symptom to something that is going on much more underneath. So a lot of times as humans, we experience trauma and pain in our different forms of our life, and we experience it in different subsets of our life. So a lot of times addiction can be a trauma response. So maybe something happened to you traumatically as a child, or maybe it happened to you traumatically, or just maybe some type of trauma is going on, or just something is going wrong in your life. So your addiction, whether that be alcohol, weed, drugs, porn, whatever your addiction is, it's simply a response to feeling like whatever is wrong in your life. And it's your way of coping with it. So it's not the root of the problem, but it's just merely a symptom of something greater. So the services that I went with, number one, I went with McGeary. It's spelled Migiri. It's like a purple application. If you pull it up, I'll share it after the screen. I'll just go to like the website so I can make sure I'm showing you the correct way. There's Sonder Mind. There's BetterHelp. Maybe like you've seen ads for it, or maybe just you could just Google it. Maybe like if your job provides it, you can just start going to therapy for it. But for me, my therapy for it came from, or the my trauma response for watching porn was, I think it could be like a myriad of reasons, but I remember one experience that I had was because I was like very horny in high school. One experience that I had was I was trying to have sex with this girl. And so as like we were trying to like I guess like figure out a way to go into like to do it, we kind of like ducked off into like this little classroom. And I just kind of remember her asking, to see it. And as she so, like I take it out, and I'm not gonna, describe any details, but I basically take out my private area, as we should say here. And I remember she had like a very just like disgusted look on her face. Like it was almost like a frown. And I think maybe that was one of the things to where I probably continued to watch porn, or I probably continued, to go down that path. And then it was also maybe just like other things, like when I was younger as well, just because I used to be fat, so I just really wouldn't get positive female attention when I was in middle school. So I think those are some of the things to where for me, because I got picked on also as well, and like for like other reasons outside of that. But I think that could have been my trauma response to it. So that could have been just like those negative things that could have happened. And for other people, maybe they could have gotten touched. Everybody responds to different things differently in their life. So I think that maybe that was my reasoning for it. So that was my reasoning for maybe like watching it, or and I think the reason why I did like it is because it felt like I could have power in the sense to where I couldn't be turned down, to where almost I could search anything and my request could not be denied. And I don't want to like, maybe trigger anyone or anything, but I'm just giving that as an example for why some people could maybe start watching these things, or maybe it could just be serving as to where it's like, for whatever reason, you started watching it and now you have a really bad habit of watching it. So I'm just giving that as an example. Maybe your reason could be a very bad sexual experience. Maybe your reason could have been possibly being molested, or maybe just having someone do something to you when you were younger that you just didn't like, or that you felt was wrong, but it was just a very hard way to kind of speak on it. I don't know what it is, but I'm saying that if you go to therapy, it will at least let you actually start troubleshooting your mind to see what could be wrong or what is the reason for why you feel like you kind of can't stop. So that's why I put go to therapy. All right, and the next slide, getting rid of all of your triggers. So you want to get rid of all your triggers and essentially just throw away the ammo. So maybe if you are watching, because I remember back when I was watching porn, it would just feel like this was something to where it was like I could just watch it and I didn't know how to stop. Like I didn't even know when it came. I just felt like whenever I got horny, I'm looking at it. So here are like some potential triggers, and then I'll go into like my potential triggers or my triggers when I was still, dealing with this. Number one is isolation. So I don't know how true the statistic is, but I did see where they were saying like when the pandemic happened or when COVID happened, porn usage went up in America or just really like around the world. And it's like when you think about it, it's like, okay, well, that would kind of make sense why it would go up because it's like you kind of have all these people who kind of can't go out and date. So now they're probably sitting at home looking at, websites. So isolation could be one. And I'm going to go through and give my like response to all these triggers and like things you can do to maybe counteract them. So isolation is one. Stress, stress is a killer. So stress will have you, drink and doing a lot of things. And negative emotions, yeah. Um, seeing or sensing your addiction, or just I'm gonna say seeing or sensing, yeah, seeing or sensing it. So maybe like, for example, let's say a person who's an alcoholic and they have to drive home and they happen to pass by a bar on their way home. That could be a potential trigger for you. Times of celebration, yeah. And then negative association. So you guys can look all these triggers up and maybe like ask Chat GPT what the hell they mean, blah, 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 blah. Whatever. To counteract isolation, what I would say is a good one, like maybe like if you live with people, because this one's one for me, because like I would feel like I would feel very decrepit if that makes sense. So maybe I'm not using the right word. I don't fucking know. Anyway, when I was at home, and let's just say a trigger for me would be like if my door was closed. So like I'm in my living room now, but a trigger for me would be like when my door was closed and then it's at night. So it's like everybody's sleep in your house and that's when the ghouls come out at night. So a trigger for me to kind of counteract that isolation feeling is whenever I felt the urge or the craving of it come along, I would open my door. I would never close it again or lock it. I'd open my door and just leave it open and go to sleep at night. Another trigger for me was because, like, I go to sleep with, I'm pretty much I'm pretty sure anybody now in like the modern age, you may not use a regular alarm clock. So your phone is already like near your nightstand. So a trigger for me would, like I said, would be being isolated and then the phone being like right there on the nightstand. And then if you're like sleeping naked, so then it's like maybe that's a trigger because your mind has been conditioned now to where, oh, well, every night or every morning you jerk off, you watch porn. So to that isolating feeling, I would say leaving the door open, even if like you live at home by yourself, you'd be surprised just leaving that door open will remove that wall of privacy for you. Another thing is maybe if like you isolate yourself a lot, go out and get a hobby. So maybe like let's say you have this bad habit with it. If you're isolating yourself a lot, instead of like delete something as crazy as it sounds, delete something like DoorDash from your phone and just go out and get the food. And then when you go out to actually start doing things, I want you to speak to people because porn has probably made you, and I'll talk about this later on in the course, but it's probably made you get to the point to where you're objectifying women, you're objectifying men, or, for example, whatever you like, you're objectifying these people and you're not even seeing them as human anymore. And that's a horrible thing when you think about it. But go out more, don't just isolate yourself, leave your door open, and you'll probably just be surprised by how much better your mental health feels. Or maybe if you are feeling isolated in that moment, another thing you can do is pray, you can journal, um, you can also maybe call a friend. You can just call people. You can do those things. You can connect to real human interaction. Stress or challenging emotions. So if if you notice, like, let's say, for example, a person is feeling stress, I would say maybe in their resulting to a bad habit due to stress, it's a good chance that maybe eliminating that sense of stress is probably going to eliminate that habit. So let's say a person, let's go back to the analogy, let's say a person, not an alcoholic, but a person who has a shit day at work. And like we've all had that, but now every day is a shit day for them. And let's say they're a manager or something. Let's say they've got like an asshole manager, and it's the type of manager to where they're not even like a regular asshole. It's just you physically think about whooping their ass on a daily basis. You'd be fantasizing about it driving to work. Anyway, I would say whatever is causing that stress, try your best to cut that out of your life. So maybe if it's like a very stressful job, I would say take some steps to maybe try to leave that job. And I know that it sounds easier said than done, but I would say maybe just see if like you can do like some type of career transition. So let's say you work in a stressful factory and let's say you do that. I would say to eliminate it, let's just get rid of working in that factory. So let's say you maybe go to course careers and you sign up for the information technology. Um, let's say you sign up for the information technology course and you start working on it. As you're working on it, what's going to happen is you're probably going to stop those bad habits as you're working on it because you're going to start feeling hope and renewal because you're taking the steps to remove this stress out of your life slowly. And then those challenging or negative emotions, I'll cover like that in the next topic. The next thing is seeing or sensing your addiction. So maybe if like let's say like for example, I don't want to maybe like say something that'll trigger someone, but my wife, she loves the show or she liked the show called Euphoria. And so I sat down and watched the episode with her. I think it was like the second episode that I don't want to trigger anybody, but the dad was on some weird shit. He was basically like I'll just say he liked to record his hookups. And another girl from, if I'm remembering the show correctly, if y'all hear me say something in a southern accent, I'm from down south. I'm from Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia to be specific. But if you hear me say something to where I didn't, whatever. Anyway, the girl, she was on some weird shit too. She was getting into the idea of like recording herself and putting herself out on an X-rated website. She was just basically like getting hooked on like seeing it or like recording herself, blah, whatever. So even though it wasn't like a real X website that she was going to, I felt myself kind of slipping or getting that triggering or getting that anxiety feeling seeing this on the TV. So as a result, I just don't watch that show anymore. And, I shared this with her, but my point is that seeing or sensing your addiction, even though you could not necessarily be going to the website directly, it's just you could start that anxiety feeling. You could kick up and feel that type of anxious feeling with it. So that's why I would say avoid seeing or sensing a trigger. So if it's like, okay, we're watching this movie and they kind of keep referencing it maybe to porn or something, don't watch the show or TV or movie because maybe that will start triggering you or that'll just start making you feel very anxious about it. And then before you know it, you're off the wagon again. So that's why I would tell you don't see or sense your addiction. And then next to last, times of celebration. So I didn't feel this way, but I noticed that maybe some people could start to feel this way. Like let's say you're celebrating something And then you maybe have a habit to maybe do that bad habit right when you celebrate. So let's link this and say a person has a bad drinking habit and they just got a new job. They're excited for it. It's going to be paying double the amount of salary they were making at the last role. They could, that could maybe, that time of celebration could spark them to maybe drink again. So that's why I would say, times of celebration. And then lastly, negative association. So negative association could go back to like the previous example before, where like you're laying down, you're in bed, maybe like you sleep naked. Your brain has now associated sleeping naked with a time to look at porn or do this habit. So you're going to have to disassociate your mind with it. Maybe if like you have to set your alarm and put your phone on the other side of the room on another nightstand and your bed be all the way on the other side and you sleep with the door open. Maybe you might have to do that to kind of disassociate it. So now that we and by the way, I hope maybe like you take some time to actually realize what your triggers are. But now that we've done that, the next step is you now identify what your personal triggers are and you stop it. So this could take place, I want to say maybe in your 3 to 8 weeks of sobriety. That's what it says on the internet. I feel like that is like the case where you'll actually probably start realizing it. For me, I started, my sobriety journey, I would say probably like right after my dad died, or I'm not even gonna say journey, I'm gonna say lifestyle, because this is now just a part of my lifestyle. And so you'll notice as you probably start identifying it and stopping it, what your personal triggers are. So the methods that you could use, and this is a really good one from my therapist. he would basically he was basically he used to be a correctional officer, that's what he told me. And he would say that whenever inmates would do something violent to other inmates, he would say that the inmates would always have the same story of, well, I just got mad, I just got mad. He said he would get tired of it. So something that I've noticed is we don't just ever do something. If you have this type of habit, it doesn't just start up. So the first thing that I would tell you is, or the first method, and it's so simple to where you really wouldn't think that this is a method, but it works, trust me. And this works on anything that maybe like you're trying to stop doing. The first thing is, it's called a stop method. Now you may be thinking, William, how the hell does a stop method work? The reason why a stop method works is because it gives clarity to whatever the situation is that you're in right now. So it'll give clarity to realize what your trigger is so that you can disarm this. So back to the situation where I said I would go to sleep at night, because I was so accustomed to watching porn at night in my bed on my phone. When I started doing the stop method, that's how I figured out that that was my trigger. And that's how I came up with ways to counteract it, like leaving the door open, putting my phone on the other side of the room, things of that nature. So the stop method, and it just goes like this. Whenever you feel that feeling of maybe like wanting to watch porn, or like maybe wanting to like relapse, or just like all those feelings, whenever you are feeling anxious about it, or like just whenever you want to like now watch it, I want you to simply yell, "Stop!" I'm sorry if you're wearing headphones and I hurt your head, but I did this for dramatic purposes, because I want you to yell either stop, or I want you to yell it in your head. So let's say you have a problem with this. If you're at work and you notice your boss is stressing you out, the one whose ass you want to whoop, and you notice that they keep giving you work, and then you get the feeling to where you're like, I want you to yell stop. Then you're going to realize, okay, I want to do this because I'm feeling all this extra stress from work. So now let me take the steps to get rid of this punk ass job so that I don't keep doing this. And the stop method works like that because it brings clarity to whatever is triggering you or whatever environment triggers you or setting triggers you. And that's how the stop method works. So, like I said, let's say you're in or let's say back to the negative association thing, because you're supposed to get horny. As a man or a woman, you're supposed to maybe want to have sex. You're supposed to feel that way. You're supposed to want to get horny. It's nothing wrong with that. But the problem is you've now associated that with looking at a screen of two people or one person or whatever doing a very weird act. And I don't want to trigger anybody, so that's why I'm not going to go into that. But doing a very weird act. So that's why you want to do the stop method because it will help you disassociate porn from just being horny. It's normal. Like, let's say you're a man and you wake up, or a woman, you wake up, you go outside, and you're walking and you see a person who's attractive. It's normal for you to be like, man, that person's kind of attractive. And then it's normal for you to admire it and say, wow, they're very attractive without objectifying them. And you continue on with your day. It's normal if randomly you're just sitting somewhere and you just get kind of horny. It's hormones. This is who you are biologically. But what's not normal is sitting there watching people doing it on a screen. That's not normal. So that's why you want to start doing the stop method because it'll help you identify and stop all triggers. And I can tell you, it's been a very powerful thing. But the most powerful thing about it is it doesn't even have to be you. It can be used with negative thoughts. It can be used with anything because it brings clarity and awareness to each situation. So the next thing is journaling. So I did this because I was feeling a lot of grief after my dad died. But I noticed that whenever I would feel on my bad days, just grief, I would write down how I was feeling and I would write down things I was grateful for. So just a lot of journaling helps with that too. And then also, but I've noticed that and maybe I'll make like another video because I feel like journaling can also help like with just like getting the thoughts off of your mind and putting them onto paper and at least coming one step closer with things. So the next one is meditating. So you can meditate or take very deep breaths. That brings awareness to it too. I don't use it that much, but I noticed that the stop method in journaling works for me. So whatever works for you works for you. Um, Open the door and going outside. So this is part of isolating, but if you're kind of like sitting around and you're in your room or whatever, and you're just kind of feeling some type of way, I would tell you go outside and just walk for at least 20 minutes. The reason why is because you might just be feeling a temporary feeling that makes you want to condone it with bullshit. So just going outside and getting fresh air, seeing the sun, going outside, it's very powerful. Even if it's raining outside, just going outside and taking a minute, not walking with a phone, not walking with anything, just taking some time to reflect on what just happened or what is about to happen. That will identify and stop those things. Now, what you can also expect in maybe like your first 3 to 8 weeks of your new lifestyle, what you can expect is maybe depression. And the reason why, interesting enough, why you may feel some depression is because your body is going to go through like a lack of dopamine. Because when you think about it, when you watch these videos, it's not the videos themselves as you're watching it, what's giving you a dopamine boost. It's the anticipation of it. So if you're sitting there and you've been constantly anticipating it from morning to night to just on the weekend, whatever, your mind has probably, well, not even your mind, but your brain has probably produced so much goddamn dopamine. So you just need to be replenished. So you're probably going to feel like you have a lack of energy. You have a lack of just excitement. The next thing is that you might just feel anxiety. And for some people, like this may just come through like the forms of breathing. This may just come through like the forms of overanalyzing, but you'll probably feel some anxiety. Intrusive thoughts. So I would feel intrusive thoughts, thoughts of like, what if I fuck up? What if I relapse? All those type of thoughts. The best thing to do, I'm not going to tell you don't think about it, but let the thought come and let it pass through your mind and then just choose to think about something else. Number four is loss of libido. So again, you have to realize that, hey, this is something to where you probably are just taking some time to, because your body is essentially resetting itself. You may not feel as overly excited as you once did. And that's because, again, you're not spiking your dopamine so much. So your body is just taking the time to also reset its hormones and reset its mind. So if you feel these things into sobriety and you're like, man, I feel like shit. What's the point? I might as well just go back. No, this is actually normal. It's normal for you to feel this way. It's okay. Keep going. Okay. And then I think this is where like we'll cut it off here. So the next part of this course, I'm going to be talking about maybe like the positive influence that you can go into, but we'll because I feel like this maybe have already gotten kind of long, and I just don't want to be shoving over consumption into your mind. So I'm just going to basically just be cutting this short here. But I'd like to say thank you for sticking with me as long as you did. Thank you for taking the time to watch this. You could have been watching anything else. You could have been on your ass watching Netflix, stuck in a Popeyes drive-through, doing whatever the hell knows. Who knows? But I want to take the time to say thank you for watching this if you were watching this. Thank you.